Let's turn now to criminal defense attorney and legal analyst Jami Floyd to consider the next phase of the Casey Anthony murder trial. Glad that you're with us, Jami. Now, we heard today about a remarkable narrative suggesting that Casey Anthony may have got her explanation for what happened to her own child from another prison inmate.
Well, may have gone to the notion of a drowning. But we have to remember, and it's being characterized as perhaps a bombshell by the prosecution if they're permitted to use it in court. But we have to remember that drowning is the second largest cause of death in the United States after only car accidents of infant children, any child under the age of 5.
Wow, so it's a credible position. It is a
credible position. And so if this evidence comes in, of course it's going to be incredibly powerful for the jury, especially if the story is sufficiently similar to the one that Jose Baez presented in opening statement. And this is a very, very difficult decision for the judge. I don't envy him at all. If he lets it in, it's got to be powerful, even if the jury knows the statistic, which I assume the defense would raise in closing argument. If the judge keeps it out, then that's a very difficult position for the prosecution. So he's got to grapple with this. If he lets it in, it could be an error on appeal, and he knows that. So I don't envy Judge Perry at all.
Do you think he'll let it in?
Well, I hate to second guess a judge in his robe. I tend to think he won't let it in. This is one of those pieces of evidence that we hear about in the media, the jury never hears about it, and then the public is outraged because we know so much more than the jury knows when they go into deliberation, and therefore we always second guess that jury verdict when it comes down.
Our correspondent Kerry Sanders was talking earlier today about the fact that you have one expert witness for the prosecution and another from the defense. Today we had an individual saying that they didn't think there was evidence of decomposition in the car. Does that mean that most of that story about the body in the car is likely to be dismissed by the jury because they've heard one explanation from expert, they've had another? Do they cancel each other out? Is that how it works?
I heard Kerry's report, and it's battle of the experts at this point in the trial, and this is where it's easy to forget who has the burden of proof because, of course, the prosecution has the burden. It's not as though the prosecution just has to tip the scale a little bit. They have to really have a lot of proof, and the defense only has to poke some holes in the evidence that the prosecution's experts brought in. So I think, even though we talk about the battle of the experts, the jury will be reminded of that by the judge in the instructions, and thus far the defense's experts have been pretty good. So
if all of that cancels itself out, finally, what we're left with is no real clear reason for why the child died.
Well, what juries really rely on, they do listen to the experts, they really do, and there have been good experts on both sides, although that hooey about the odor expert, that's nonsense. But what they really listen to are the percipient witnesses, most of all the defendant if she takes the stand.
Absolutely. Jami Floyd, as ever, thank you very much indeed.